In today's video, I'm going to be continuing with and finishing up my journey through the main questline featured in the Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim. Last time, Esbern and I made our escape from the Rift in Ratways. He reunited with Delphine, and from there, the three of us traveled over to Skyhaven Temple. Inside of it was Alduin's Wall, which is where Esbern learned that a shout was needed to defeat the World Eater. After chatting with the Greybeards about it, Arngir sent me on my way to speak with their leader, Paarthurnax. Paarthurnax ended up being a dragon, and together we figured out that an Elder Scroll was going to be needed to learn the shout. Through help from the College of Winterhold and Septimus Cygnus, I traveled to the Dwemer ruins of Alftand. From Alftand, I entered Blackreach and located the legendary artifact. Bringing it back to the Time Wound, I witnessed the heroes of old use Dragonrend and then send Alduin forward in time. Right after, the World Eater himself showed up, and together with Paarthurnax, we temporarily defeated him. This is where the journey continues. After the hard-fought battle, I regrouped with Paarthurnax in order to hear what the next move was.
Lot Kongrach, you truly have the voice of a Dova. Alduin's allies will think twice after this victory.
I tell him that it didn't really feel like a win.
Ni livrach hin moro. True, this is not the final Kongrach victory, but not even the heroes of old were able to defeat Alduin in open battle. Alduin always was Pachlok, arrogant in his power. Uznagar Par. He took domination as his birthright. This should shake the loyalty of the Dove who serve him.
I tell him that I need to find Alduin.
Yes, one of his allies could tell us. Matmahus. But it will not be so easy to convince one of them to betray him. Perhaps the Hafkasayun, the palace in Whiterun, Dragon's Reach. It was originally built to house a captive Dova. A fine place to trap one of Alduin's allies,
I said that Jarl Balgruuf probably thinks otherwise.
Yes, but your Soom is strong. I do not doubt that you can convince him of the need.
I once heard the legends from the Jarl Steward, and now Paarthurnax basically confirmed them. Dragon's Reach was meant to trap a live dragon, and at this point, it seems like my best bet for learning how to reach Alduin. Before leaving the Throat of the World, there was one last order of business I needed to tend to. Up on the highest peak, on the tallest mountain in Skyrim, there's proof that another came before me. Laying near some malachite or veins, waiting for its next owner to pick it up, was the Notched Pickaxe. Legend has it that Steve Creepermane, the best miner in all of Tamriel, used this weapon tool hybrid to assert his dominance. The Notched Pickaxe raises the wielder's smithing abilities and does 5 shock points of damage. Overpowered, game-breaking items aside, I fast-traveled to Dragon's Reach and entered the keep. I already knew just how insane the request was going to sound to the Jarl, but it had to be done.
I must have misheard you. I thought you asked me to help you trap a dragon in my palace.
I tell him that it's the only way to stop the dragons.
What you're asking for is insane. Impossible. You want me to let a dragon into the heart of my city, with the threat of war on my doorstep?
I inform him that Alduin has returned, and everyone's days are numbered.
Alduin, the World Eater himself. But how can we fight him? Doesn't his return mean it's the end times?
I replied that it's my destiny to defeat him.
I don't know about such things, but I heard the Greybeard summon you. That's good enough for me. Now what's this nonsense about trapping a dragon in my palace?
I said that it's our best shot at stopping the World Eater.
I want to help you, Dragonborn, and I will, but I need your help first. Ulfric and General Tullius are both just waiting for me to make a wrong move. Do you think they will sit idle while the dragon is slaughtering my men and burning my city? No. I can't risk weakening the city while we are under the threat of enemy attack. I'm sorry.
I asked him what if he didn't have to worry about that.
Then I would be glad to help you with your mad dragon-trapping scheme, but getting both sides to agree to a truce will be difficult at this point. The bitterness has gone too deep. Maybe. What of the Greybeards? They are respected by all Nords. High Hrothgar is neutral territory. If the Greybeards were willing to host a peace council, then maybe Ulfric and Tullius would have to listen.
I told Balgruuf to leave that detail to me.
Aye, Dragonborn. Maybe you can stop the dragons, and this war into the bargain.
For this portion of the main quest, The Fallen, there are 2 mini-quests that run concurrent to it. The first is called Season Unending. Since there's no final result to Skyrim's civil war, my task is to bring both leaders of each side to the negotiation table. Definitely a job that sounds easier said than done, and it doesn't sound very easy. First though, I had to make sure that the Greybeards would be okay with hosting something like this. They're avidly against concerning themselves with the province's current affairs, but ever since Paarthurnax got involved, they've been pushovers towards me. Traveling to High Hrothgar, I sought out Master Arngeir and spoke with him.
Alduin? We heard the Dragonren shout from here. You defeated him?
I told him that he escaped to Sovngarde.
I feared as much. I thought it was him we saw flying east after your battle.
I then asked Arngeir for his help in capturing the dragon.
We are not warriors. What is overlooked in the Dragonborn is not permitted to any other followers of the Way of the Voice.
I told him that I just need their aid in pausing the civil war.
You misunderstand our authority. The Greybeards have never involved themselves in political affairs.
I informed him on where Jarl Balgruuf stood.
I see. The dragon will lead you to Alduin, but without the Jarl's help.
I told him that they'll listen to their authority.
Paarthurnax has made the decision to help you. This is the road we have to walk. Even the Greybeards must bend to the winds of change, it seems. So be it. Tell Ulfric and General Tullius that the Greybeards wish to speak to them. We will see if they still remember us.
With a corner of the puzzle solved, it was now time to assemble the rest of the picture. Call me biased, but I figured General Tullius was going to be less hot-headed and easier to convince than Ulfric, so my first stop was Solitude. Interestingly, I was able to walk right up to the castle and enter without anyone stopping me or asking questions. Probably not the safest for him, but he's lucky I just came here for a chat. As I went inside the Imperial War Room, General Tullius was talking with Legate Ricka regarding the current state of Whiterun. I briefly interrupted the conversation to remind Tullius of who I was, but it only led to him sending me off for recruitment. As their meeting resumed, it sounded like the Imperials believed Ulfric was going to be attacking Whiterun soon, and Tullius wanted to be there to stop them and supply aid to Balgruuf. Cutting in once more, I told the general that I had a message from the Greybeards.
The Greybeards? What do those old hermits want with me?
I informed him that they're assembling a peace council.
Why, there's nothing to discuss as long as that traitor Ulfric is in arms against his rightful emperor.
I told him that the dragon invasion is a more pressing matter.
They are getting to be a problem, but I wasn't sent to Skyrim to fight dragons. My job is to quell this rebellion, and I intend to do just that, dragons or no dragons.
Stroking his ego a bit, I said that it's best to negotiate from a position of strength.
Fair enough. We're driving the Stormcloaks back well enough at the moment, but we're already overstretched. That's what comes of trying to win a war with a bare handful of legions. If the Emperor would just give me the reinforcements I've requested.
I lastly confirmed if he was attending.
Yes, fine. I'll come to this Greybeard Council. For all the good it will do.
With one leader down, there was just one more to go, but I knew I was going to have a little more work cut out for me on this one. The Thalmor were right about one thing. Ulfric is paranoid, distrusting, and withdrawn, but he has every right to be, and it's served him well so far. Fast traveling to the Windhelm stables, I made my way for the city gates. Along the path, a guard told me that some boy named Aretino was trying to summon the Dark Brotherhood. It's a pretty grim thing to do and a nasty piece of work. Just inside the city, there was a small group of Nords ganging up on a singular Dunmer woman. They were giving her heck for no good reason, and the whole scene reminded me a lot of being an outlander on Vardenfell. Regardless, similar to Solitude's castle, I was able to just mosey on up to the Palace of the Kings and go on inside. No questions asked. Ulfric was in a meeting with his advisor, Galmar Stonefist, and funny enough, they were also talking about Whiterun. The conversation was very different though. Galmar kept telling him to kill Jarl Balgruuf and take the city by force, and Ulfric entertained the idea, telling him that it could be done in due time. It felt as though this really showed each side's true colors and the real difference between the Empire and the Stormcloaks. Tullius's first instinct was to help those who would probably look down upon him and cast him out, whereas Ulfric isn't opposed to killing someone who is as Nord-like as a Nord can get, exactly the type of person he wants Skyrim to be full of. In any case, I'll save my opinions and judgments for the Civil War video, as there's plenty of time for either side to win me over. Cutting into their conversation, I finally got a chance to speak with the High King.
I remember you. You're at Helgen with us. Come to join the war. Speak with Galmar. He handles the new recruits.
I tell him that's not why I'm here.
I'm sorry to hear that. If you change your mind, speak with Galmar. What does bring you to me?
I told him that I bore a message from the Greybeards.
It's about time they turned their gaze from the heavens back to our bleeding homeland. What do they want?
I brought up the truce with the Imperials.
I have the greatest respect for the Greybeards, of course, and the dragon attacks are a growing plague. But the political situation is still delicate. Not all the Jarls are fully committed to supporting me as High King. I can't afford to appear weak. I can't agree to this unless Tullius himself will be there.
Lucky for me, I went to Tullius first.
Good. We still hold half of Skyrim despite everything the Empire could throw at us. I doubt the Empire has the stomach for much more bloodletting.
I confirm if he'll be at the council.
Yes, I'll give Tullius one more chance to quit Skyrim with his tail between his legs.
Leaving the palace, that takes care of the formalities. The only thing now though is to see if they can actually come to some sort of an agreement. Fast traveling over to High Hrothgar, I was about to go inside of the keep when I saw two figures wandering up the 7,000 steps. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be Esbern and Delphine. Wanting to greet them myself, I ran over, and that's when Delphine sprung a tricky ultimatum on me.
There's one more thing. We know about Paarthurnax. Paarthurnax, the dragon that the Greybeards have been protecting for all these years. He needs to die. He deserves to die. And it falls to you to kill him. Until he's dead. Well, I'm sorry, but we would dishonor our oaths as blades if we continued to help you.
I asked why Paarthurnax needed to die.
Here's the big picture. He helped Alduin enslave our ancestors. He may have betrayed Alduin in the end, but that makes him worse, not better. We can't afford to give Paarthurnax the opportunity to betray us in turn and return to his old master.
If you remember before, I mentioned there were two mini-quests that accompanied the Fallen. One of them was Season Unending. The second one though is Paarthurnax, and in order to keep my relationship with the Blades, I'm to slay him. Wanting to deal with the current matter at hand first, I went into the keep and was greeted by the Greybeards.
So, you've done it. The men of violence are gathered here, in these halls whose very stones are dedicated to peace. I should not have agreed to host this council. The Greybeards have no business involving ourselves in such matters.
I told Arngeir to leave the rest up to me.
Peace? I doubt it. They may put their weapons down for a moment, but only to gather strength for the next bloodletting. They are not yet tired of war. Far from it. Do you know the ancient Nord word for war? Season unending. And so it has proved. But regrets are pointless. Here we are. Take your seat at the council table, and let us see what wisdom we can find among these warriors of Skyrim.
As I made way for the council, I overheard the conversation between the Greybeards and the Blades, which piqued my interest.
Arngeir, is it? You know why we're here. Are you going to let us in or not?
You are not invited here. You are not welcome here.
We have as much right to be at this council as all of you. More, actually, since we were the ones that put the Dragonborn on this path.
Were you? The hubris of the Blades truly knows no bounds.
Delphine, we're not here to rehearse old grudges. The matter at hand is urgent. Alduin must be stopped. You wouldn't have called this council if you didn't agree. We know a great deal about the situation and the threat that Alduin poses to us all. You need us here if you want this council to succeed.
Very well. You may enter.
The more I see how Delphine and Esbern handle these situations, the more I think Esbern should just run the show. Delphine came in here swords blazing and was probably going to start a fight she would have lost if not for Esbern. He was actually able to reason with the Greybeards, which saved their hide, and that seems more like the Blade kind of thing to do. Entering the council chambers, I got a good look at everyone who was in attendance. There were 5 who seemingly sided with the Empire and only 2 for the Stormcloaks. Of the 5, Tullius and Rika were there. Jarl Elisif came, although I'm sure her invitation was just a formality from Tullius. Balgrove was there, which makes sense for Dragon's Reach, and then, saving the best for last, Ellen Wynn of the Thalmor decided to show her face. The very same one who had Malborn killed and threatened Esbern. With everyone finally ready, we all took our seats and the meeting had begun. Well, sort of.
Please take your seats so we can begin. I hope that we have all come here in the spirit
You
of...
insult us by bringing her to this negotiation? You're Chief Talos Hunter?
That didn't take long.
Here, here.
I have every right to be at this negotiation. I need to ensure that nothing is agreed to here that violates the terms of the White Gold Concordat.
She's part of the Imperial delegation. You can't dictate who I bring to this council.
Please, if we have to negotiate the terms of the negotiation, we will never get anywhere. Perhaps this would be a good time to get the Dragonborn's input on this matter.
By Izmir's beard, the nerve of those Imperial bastards, eh? To think that I would sit down at the same table with that Thalmor bitch. Either she walks or I do.
Well, not only then is the answer clear, I need Ulfric more than I need Elenwyn, but I really don't like her either. As just mentioned, her and I have some bad history, and even though her reasons for being here are legitimate, I think it'll only interfere with Ulfric's mindset.
I'm glad we agree on this.
Very well, Ulfric. Enjoy your petty victory. The Thalmor will treat with whatever government rules Skyrim. We would not think of interfering in your civil war.
Ha! Skyrim will never bow to the Thalmor. Unlike your Imperial friends here.
You're lucky I respect the Greybeard's counsel, Galmar.
Legate, we represent the Emperor here.
Sorry, sir. It won't happen again.
Now that that's settled, may we proceed?
I have something to say first.
Here we go.
The only reason I agreed to attend this council was to deal with the dragon menace. There's nothing else to talk about. Unless the Empire is finally ready to renounce its unjust claim to rule over the free people of Skyrim.
I knew he wouldn't be
We're
able
here
to resist.
arrange a temporary truce to allow the Dragonborn here to deal with the dragons, nothing more. I consider even talking to the Empire a generous gesture.
Are you done? Did you just come here to make speeches, or can we get down to business?
Yes, let's get this over with.
Are we ready to proceed? Jarl Ulfric, General Tullius, this council is unprecedented. We are gathered here at the Dragonborn's request. I ask that you all respect the spirit of High Hrothgar, and do your best to begin the process of achieving a lasting peace in Skyrim. Who would like to open the negotiations?
Yes, let's get down to it. We want control of Markarth. That's our price for agreeing to a truce.
So that's why you're here, Ulfric? You dare to insult the Greybeards by using this council to advance your own position?
Jarl Elisif.
General, this is outrageous. You can't be taking this demand seriously. I thought we were here to discuss a truce.
Elisif, I said I'd handle it. Ulfric, you can't seriously expect us to give up Markarth at the negotiating table. You hope to gain in council what you've been unable to take in battle, is that it?
I'm sure Jarl Ulfric does not expect something for nothing.
Yes, that'd be entirely out of character.
I want in return.
Wait, General, you don't intend to just hand over Markarth to that traitor?
This is how the Empire repays us for our loyalty?
Enough. First, let's be clear. This council wasn't my idea. I think it's a waste of time. You are a traitor to the Empire, and deserve a traitor's death. But I at least will negotiate in good faith. Since we're all here at your request, I'd like to hear what you think Markarth is worth.
My two options are Riften or Dawnstar. Aesthetically speaking, Markarth is my favorite city in all of Skyrim, and nothing can buy it, but tactically, it holds a pretty promising position in the west. Dawnstar isn't much but a couple of houses and miserable people. No offense to any Dawnstar lovers out there. Riften, on the other hand, is a much bigger city, and strategically speaking, it gives both sides a presence on either side of the province. Thinking it to be much fairer than Dawnstar, Tullius agreed at first, and then made me look like a fool.
The rift would help secure our communications with Cyrodiil, and threatened Ulfric's southern flank.
The Dragonborn has spoken, Tullius. Markarth will be ours. Now we'll see if there's anything behind your talk of good faith.
You disappoint me, Dragonborn. I accepted your invitation on trust in your good name. But it seems you intend to favor Ulfric. I can see now that this is not a negotiation at all. I know you, Ulfric. If I hand over Markarth, you'll be ready with a new demand. You'll never defeat the Empire, and you know it. But you're willing to sacrifice thousands for your own selfish ambition. Soon enough, I'll have you back under the headsman's axe, and this time there won't be any dragon to save you.
As always, the Empire's fine words are worth nothing.
Stop! Are you so blind to our danger that you can't see past your petty disagreements? Here you sit arguing about nothing, while the fate of the land hangs in the balance.
Is he with you, Delphine? If so, I advise you to tell him to watch his tongue.
He is with me. And I advise you both to listen to what he has to say before you do anything rash.
Don't you understand the danger? Don't you understand what the return of the dragons means? Alduin has returned, the World Eater. Even now he devours the souls of your fallen comrades. He grows more powerful with every soldier slain in your pointless war. Can you not put aside your hatred for even one moment in the face of this mortal danger?
I don't know about the end of the world, but this dragon situation has gotten out of hand. If this truce will help the Dragonborn here put an end to that menace, we both gain. Remember that, Ulfric. Now, back to the matter at hand. You know as well as I do that we can't hand over Markarth on these terms.
Swords, bones, where will these demands end?
I'm listening.
We want compensation for the massacre at Karthwasten.
You slaughtered the very people you claim to be fighting for. True sons of Skyrim would never do such things.
Damned Imperial lies. My men would never stoop to such methods, even in retaliation for your butchery at...
All the blood spilled in this war is on your head.
So, Dragonborn, what do you say?
Although Galmar claims the Stormcloaks weren't behind the massacre, there isn't really any time to fact-check this. Since I had apparently disappointed Tullius with my reasonable trade last time, in order to further pursue peace, I just decided to side with him on this one.
Well said. For once you'll actually pay for your crimes. I suppose that's the fairest deal we're likely to get.
It seems we may have an agreement. Jarl Ulfric, General Tullius, These are the terms currently on the table. Markarth will be handed over to Ulfric's forces, Jarl Igmund will step down, and Thangvor Silverblood will become the Jarl of Markarth. The Stormcloaks will withdraw from the rift, allowing Imperial troops unhindered access. Jarl Leila Lawgiver will step down, and Maven Blackbriar will become the Jarl of Riften. The Stormcloaks will pay appropriate compensation for the massacre at Karthwasten. You both agree to this?
The Sons of Skyrim will live up to their agreements, as long as the Imperials hold to theirs. What about you, Elisif? Are these terms to your liking? Speak up! I'm sure General Tullius is waiting to do your bidding.
I have nothing to say to that murderer. General, you've proven yourself a good friend to Skyrim. I continue to trust that you will do your utmost to safeguard our interests.
Thank you, Jarl Elisif. I appreciate your loyalty. The Empire can live with these terms, yes, for a temporary truce, until the dragon menace is dealt with. After that, Ulfric, there will be a reckoning. Count on it.
It was certainly a tough crowd, and I doubt that everyone left the room pleased, but at least there's some semblance of peace in Skyrim, if only for a brief moment. As people started to file out of the room, Arngir began discussing the plans with Balgrove.
The Dragonborn's plan?
Yes, I'm ready to do my part. Just say the word, and my men will help you spring this trap.
But the difficulty remains how to lure a dragon to Dragon's Reach at all.
Well, that's an excellent question. You haven't overlooked that little detail, have you?
I believe I can be of help here. I anticipated the problem. While you were arranging this meeting, I was busy in the library of Skyhaven Temp, an unguessed trove of lost lore. But the important thing is that the Blades recorded many of the names of dragons they slew. Cross-referencing this with Delphine's map of dragon burial sites, I believe I've identified one of the dragons that Alduin has raised up.
I asked Esbern how this helps.
Don't you see? The names of dragons are always 3 words of power, shouts. By calling the dragon with a voice, he will hear you wherever he might be.
I asked why he would answer the summons.
He's not compelled to, but dragons are prideful by nature and loath to refuse a challenge. Your voice in particular is likely to intrigue this dragon after your victory over Alduin. I think it's very likely that he will be unable to resist investigating your call.
I asked what the dragon's name was.
Indeed. I'm no master of the voice, like these worthy gentlemen, but it is written here in this scroll. Oda Ving, winged snow hunter, as I read it.
The conversation comes to an end, and a plan has been set in motion. With the learning of the dragon's name, all that remains now is to set the trap. Before going on my way though, there was one more matter which needed to be handled. Popping open the map, I fast traveled up to the throat of the world and started a chat with Paarthurnax by telling him that the Blades think he deserves to die.
The Blades are wise not to trust me, Onikan Niov. I would not trust another Dova.
I asked why not.
Dov Walan Farel. We were made to dominate. The will to power is in our blood. You feel it in yourself, do you not? I can be trusted. I know this, but they do not. Onikan Niov Dova. It is always wise to mistrust a Dova. I have overcome my nature only through meditation and long study of the way of the voice. No day goes by where I am not tempted to return to my inborn nature, Zingriforvut se Suliech. What is better, to be born good or to overcome your evil nature through great effort?
Of course, I wasn't actually going to kill Paarthurnax. While I do somewhat agree with Delphine's reasoning, she's proven to be a little antagonistic lately. I'm still in good favors with Esbern, and I don't want to make an enemy out of the Greybeards. With that out of the way, it's finally time to go trap a dragon. Fast traveling over to Dragon's Reach, I prepared myself for what was to come by enchanting the Dwarven Battle Axe. Slightly stronger weapon in hand, I woke up Balgruuf from his slumber and told him that it was go time.
As I promised, my men stand ready. The great chains are oiled. We wait on your word. My men know what to do. Make sure you do your part. I'm putting my city in your hands.
Running over to the Great Porch, the setup here was pretty concerning. It was a giant stock, operated by some chains and a pulley system. Putting all of our faith into it, I approached the edge of the keep and shouted for the dragon. For a few moments, the night sky was still and silent. Soon though, we heard the roar of a dragon in the distance, and before we all knew it, Odahviing was swooping around the keep, snatching up guards. For my first attempt, I assumed the dragon needed to be either close to low health or actually defeated, thinking the game was going to put a pause in the fight. So, standing my ground and swinging away at the dragon, it soon turned its attention on me, and my restoration spells were no match for its fire breath. So, trying again, this time I kept a low profile, did what the NPCs told me to do, and ignored the first part of the journal entry. Using Dragon Rend, I pulled Odahviing out of the sky and backed up further into the keep. It followed, and as I lay close to death, I heard the sounds of chains moving and the stock dropping. Peeking around the corner, Odahviing was ensnared, and the plan actually turned out to be a success.
Orvuta med Kodav, caught like a bear in a trap. Zokfrini grin kogra drunviki, Dovahkiin. Zuubonar, you went to a great deal of trouble to put me in this humiliating position. In Sir Alduin, No doubt you want to know where to find Alduin?
I asked him where Alduin was hiding.
Renik Vaza, an apt phrase. Alduin Boval. One reason I came to your call was to test your Thuum for myself. Many of us have begun to question Alduin's lordship, whether his Thuum was truly the strongest. Among ourselves, of course, Muni Mae, none were yet ready to openly defy him.
I asked again where I could find him.
Once Lord Croesus, innumerable pardons, I digress. He has traveled to Sovngarde to regain his strength, devouring the Silesure, the souls of the mortal dead, a privilege he jealously guards. His door to Sovngarde is at Skuldafn, one of his ancient fanes high in the eastern mountains. Mindoran pa ok midove lavarantil. I surely do not need to warn you that all his remaining strength is marshaled there. Zuulost ofan hinlan. Now that I have answered your question, you will allow me to go free?
I asked Odahviing if he was willing to serve me.
Serve you? No. Need id. If and when you defeat Alduin, I will reconsider. Croesus. There is one detail about Skuldafn I neglected to mention.
I asked what it was.
Only this. You have the Thuum of a Dova, but without the wings of one, you will never set foot in Skuldafn. Of course, I could fly you there, but not while imprisoned like this.
Definitely a difficult position to be in. If Odahviing is telling the truth, I would need his help to get into Skuldafn. If he's lying, however, or betrays me, then that puts a major risk on the rest of the plan and all mortals in Tamriel. Just before signing off, Farengar came wandering over and had a pretty amusing interaction with Odahviing.
Sir, you have no idea how long I have waited for such an opportunity. I would be most appreciative if you would permit me to perform some, tests on you, purely in the interests of the advancement of knowledge.
Be gone, mage. Do not test my promise to the Dovahkiin.
I assure you, you will not even notice me. Most of them are hardly painful at all to a large dragon such as yourself. Surely you wouldn't miss a few scales, or a small amount of blood.
May, what are you doing back there?
With that out of the way, thus ends the quest, The Fallen. Seeing the writing on the wall, I figured that this was the classic part in almost all action-adventure RPGs where there's no turning back. If Odahviing's offer is to be believed, and Skuldafn is the final destination before Sovngarde, now is the time to stock up. In preparation, I sought out Farengar once more and bought another Grand Soul Gem. This time, I enchanted my Falmer bow so that way I could prove to be lethal from a distance. Something I regretted doing, as you'll soon see why, was not buying filled, petty, and lesser soul gems. However, the plethora of health potions that I purchased from Angeline's aromatics went a longer way than the gems ever would have. Broke and ready, I returned to the porch and spoke again with Odahviing.
You have reconsidered my offer, Onikan Kron? You will release me, Roland, if in return I promise to take you to Skuldafn and stop helping Alduin?
I told him yes.
Onikan Korav Gair Mirad. It is wise to recognize when you only have one choice. And you can trust me. Zuni Tarodis. Alduin has proven himself unworthy to rule. I go my own way now. Free me, and I will carry you to Skuldafn.
Ascending to the upper platform, I told the guard to raise the chains.
You sure about that? You want to let that dragon loose after all the trouble to catch him in there?
I assured him it was the best choice.
Your funeral. Someone else is gonna have to help you get him back in there again.
As Odahviing began to turn around, everyone anxiously armed themselves, awaiting to see what his next move was going to be.
Saran Uth, I await your command as promised. Are you ready to see the world as only a Dova can?
Ready to go past the point of no return, I told him to take me to Skuldafn.
Zukbrit Uth. I warn you, once you've flown the skies of Kaizal, your envy of the Dove will only increase. Amativ Mubokotin Stinselok. This is as far as I can take you. Griffboth Akrin. I will look for your return, or Alduin's.
Odahviing flew off, and I was left on my own. Already, I could see the threats that were waiting for me, but there were a lot more unseen ones. Approaching the temple, I readied my weapon to battle against some Draugr, when, all of a sudden, a dragon flew in and brought the fight to me. It landed, and as I swung away with my battle axe, ancient Nord arrows came whizzing by my head, and a few even managed to tag me. The dragon probably wasn't meant to be particularly that strong to begin with, but my enchanted battle axe was working wonders. I got it down to half health in no time, and as it tried to fly away, I pulled it back to the ground using Dragon Wind. Defeating it in record time, the Draugr poured into the battlefield, but again, the axe was able to almost one-hit KO them with standard swings. Moving along and getting closer to the temple, the difficulty escalated a bit when restless Draugr came rushing over. However, the once tricky undead beings were now 2 pump chumps. A little further in, a second dragon took flight to the skies and came swooping down. Using the nearby structures as cover, I lunged in at the most opportune moments and swung away with my weapon. It had the same amount of health as the first dragon, but it managed to do a greater number on me. It could have been stamina related, or perhaps too much focus on defense, but in the end though, the killing blow was delivered and that was another one down. The dragons, however, were the least of my problems. As I ascended up the steps, I could hear more arrows flying by my head and the footsteps of Draugr scuttling above. Turning the corner, the first of many came charging in, and this turned out to be a Draugr Wight. Even with my new and improved gear, the Draugr Wights felt just as challenging as the restless ones felt back when I was level 3 in Bleak Falls Barrow. They hit hard and had lots of health. Accompanying them would be the odd restless Draugr here and there. For these encounters, I had to make sure that I fought with the proper fundamentals, avoid their swings, block what I could, and strike when the moment was right. Out here in the courtyard, I ended up taking on a lot of undead. I counted myself lucky every time I saw the restless nameplate, as the wights were getting trickier to face and the enchantment on my battle axe was draining rapidly. Eventually, the way inside the temple seemed clear, and I started phase 2 of the expedition. The Skaldafen temple was pretty similar to other ancient Nord burial grounds. The aesthetics were the same, there were traps in every room, unique treasures to take, and of course, more Draugr. However, as far as the Draugr went, I never had to face a single wight in here, so I thought myself pretty fortunate on that front. After almost one-hit KOing a couple of the weaker ones, I was brought to my first puzzle of the dungeon. It was another match the totems challenge, and for a few moments it had me a little confused. The 2 totems on the end were easy enough, as they were facing their appropriate pictures. The third totem though, the one in the middle, that one had 2 different etchings up on the wall across from it. Trying the snake emblem first, I pulled the lever and the gate on the left hand side was lifted, which now made a whole bunch of sense. So, spinning the middle totem to the eagle, the right hand side was lifted and I was free to move on. The right side only contained some treasures, while the left side held the path leading onwards. The next room contained a few more Draugr to defeat, 2 of them being restless and the other a normal one. Beyond where they kicked through the coffin, the halls were littered with spiderwebs and egg sacs, and I figured that could only mean one thing. Rounding the corner, I spotted at least 12 legs attached to giant hairy insects. Taking up my bow, I began to shoot them down from a distance. Luckily, most of them were the only 1 arrow needed kind, and after intercepting a few more of them, I was brought over to the second puzzle of Skaldafen. Eliminating just 2 Draugr, I ascended some steps and laid eyes on a drawbridge. Across from it was a lever, and similar to the first puzzle, the totems needed to match their corresponding etchings. The 2 on the upper platform were easy enough, as a whale was on one side and an eagle on the other. Not seeing the third, I prematurely pulled the switch and got fired on by darts. Noticing a snake emblem on the ground in front of me, I hopped down to where I first came in and took note of the final totem. Spinning it to the serpent, I tried the lever again, and lo and behold, the bridge dropped down. Behind it was a door leading further into the temple. Over here, the first room I was brought to had me in a showdown with 3 restless Draugr. 2 were firing arrows from above, and the third was closing in for the ground attack. Dispatching all of them, I was slightly worried that this weapon was going to lose its enchantment too before I actually made it to Sovngarde. Maneuvering through the rest of the dungeon brought on more undead and minor loot. Soon though, I came upon my final enemy in here, a Draugr overlord. It was by the final puzzle in the temple, a claw wall similar to the ones I saw in Bleak Falls Barrow and Ustengrav. Funny enough, the overlord was less challenging than the wights were. An interrupted shout and a few hits with my battle axe did the trick nicely. In its inventory, it had the diamond claw. Not only did it have a value of 1,000 gold, but it was my ticket out of here. Examining the piece, its palms had the emblems in order of fox, moth, dragon. Lining up the wheels on the wall and inserting the claw, the door unsealed itself and I was brought to the final chamber. As mentioned before, there were no enemies here or grand treasures, but there was a word of power in the back. It gave me the knowledge of Stormcall, which I knew was going to be a fun one to use. Following the rest of the path, it led me back out into Skyrim. Out on the edges of the Skaldafen temple, the challenges resumed as 2 Draugr wights came rushing in for the attack. A restless joined in on the beatdown, and in an attempt to reach safety, I fell off the edge and assumed that I wouldn't be able to get back up. So, reloading and having the proper foresight, I used unrelenting force on one of my attackers, pushing it off the ledge. As the other two came rushing in, I healed up and got to work. All three immediate threats were dealt with. There was a fourth, a patroller, that I picked off with my bow, and then I set my eyes on the portal to Sovngarde. The path to Alduin was so close, yet so far. Ascending the steps, I spotted two dragons perched atop some nearby peaks. They, however, didn't care for attacking me. It was the dragon priest, not green, that ended up being the real issue. It floated over to his staff, removed it from its seal, and the portal to Sovngarde was closed. As this was happening, I let loose a flurry of arrows, attempting to whittle down its health. Finally, it turned around and set its attention on me. 2 hits from its destruction spells and my health was almost gone. Downing more than a few health potions, I continued with the pressure until finally it hit me with an attack that drained my HP to 0, even though it was at over half. I tried again a few more times, each with different techniques, like keeping my distance and even utilizing the Wabbajack. On the Wabbajack run, I quickly switched to the tried and true method of swinging away with my battle axe. I took more than a few point-blank shots from the Dragon Priest and downed more than half of my health potions, but finally, I was able to deliver the killing blow. Taking the Dragon Priest staff, as well as the Wicked Mask, I approached the portal to Sovngarde. The dragons still didn't seem to mind me being there, as they left me alone, so I did the same with them. Placing the staff back in the Dragon Seal, the portal to Sovngarde reopened. Beams of light shot up from the ground, and the very earth beneath it dematerialized and turned into space. With nothing else to do but go forward, I hopped into the pit and was transported over to the Nordic heavens, thus ending the quest, the World Eater's Eyrie. Sovngarde was beautiful. It felt dreamlike. The dark skies filled with thousands of stars and streamed with waves of auroras. As I began my descent into the valley, I could see a thick layer of mist clouding the pathway ahead, and, in the distance, a dragon soaring overhead. No doubt, Alduin had already begun feasting on the souls of the weary. As I got closer to the fog, I could almost make out a giant structure, all the way on the other side of the valley. Most likely the famous Halls of Shore I've heard so much about. Casting clear skies on the mist temporarily made things a lot more visible. Wandering along the path, I began to encounter the aforementioned lost souls, many who were soldiers taken by Skyrim's Civil War.
But vain is all courage against the peril that guards the way.
I asked him who he was.
Near Giant's Gap, in the gloom before dawn, we marched unsuspecting into the Imperial's trap. Then we stood and fought, our shield wall defending, until by dawn's light, the Legion's ranks wavered. But I never knew if Night's End brought victory. A swift flying arrow to Sovngarde carried me.
I asked him about the mist.
I do not know, but none have passed through. Alduin, his hunger insatiable, hunts the lost souls snared within this shadowed valley. Can you lead the way to where Shore's Hall waits, beckoning us on to welcome long sought?
I told him it's at the other end of the valley.
I saw it fair when first I trod this long sought path. The pain and fear vanished, dreamlike, and a vision beckoned. Shore's Hall, shimmering across the clouded veil, but quenched was hope by the shrouding mist. My mind is darkened. I've lost the way, and wander blindly. Hurry, before Alduin your life devours. Bring word to Shore's Hall of our hard fate.
I told the soldier to follow my lead.
I'll try to hold to your hopeful purpose. Quickly, before this encompassing fog once more snares me in the World Eater's net.
Using clear skies once more, Alduin's position was revealed as he appeared to be waiting for us just a bit further along the pathway. He flew off, and that gave us time to continue to move through the mist. Interestingly, the World Eater never bothered to come for me. and he stuck to the lesser game found lost along the trails. As I continued on my journey, I ran into more soldiers from the Civil War, members from both the Stormcloaks and the Empire. The visual did a great job at showing just how pointless the war was. Brothers and sisters were killing each other, even though each and every one of them were true sons and daughters of Skyrim. Soon, I managed to find my way over to the whale bridge leading into the halls of Shore. As I attempted to cross them, I was intercepted by a very large man.
What brings you, Wayfarer Grim? To wander here in Sovngarde, Soul's End, Shore's gift to honor dead.
I told him that I pursue Alduin.
A fateful errand. No few have chafed to face the worm, since first he set his soul snare here at Sovngarde's threshold. But Shore restrained our wrathful onslaught. Perhaps deep counseled your doom he foresaw.
I asked him who he was.
I am Soon, shield thing to Shore. The whalebone bridge he bade me guard, and winnow all those souls whose heroic end sent them here to Shore's lofty hall, where welcome well earned awaits those I judge fit to join that fellowship of honor.
I tell him that I want to enter the Hall of Valor.
No shade are you, as usually here passes, but living, you dare the land of the dead. By what right do you request entry?
I replied on the birthright of the Dragonborn.
Ah. It's been too long since last I faced a doom-driven hero of the Dragonblood.
I ask again if I may enter.
Living or dead, by decree of Shore, none may pass this perilous bridge till I judge them worthy by the warrior's test.
Soon readies his weapon and comes in swinging. He's not just a big guy for the intimidation factor, his heavy hits brought my health down by half each time. In fact, the first time I faced him, he bested me right as he accepted me as a true warrior. The second time we fought, I popped a few health potions when things were looking grim and held out for as long as I could.
Shore, you fought well. I find you worthy. It is long since one of the living has entered here. May Shore's favor follow you and your errand.
With permissions to enter the halls of Shore, I crossed over the whalebone bridge and approached the keep's doors. This was a moment that I truly savored and took in as a highlight for this whole main quest. Finally, when ready, I went on inside of the Hall of Valor. As soon as I stepped foot in, a man, or spirit, approached me.
Welcome, Dragonborn. Our door has stood empty since Alduin first set his soul snare here. By Shore's command we sheathed our blades, and ventured not the Vale's dark mist. But three await your word to loose their fury upon the perilous foe. Gormlaith, the fearless, glad-hearted in battle. Hecon, the valiant, heavy-handed warrior. Feldir, the old, far-seeing and grim.
This person was actually Ysgramor, the first Atmoran to step foot onto Tamriel. As for the people he was talking about, those are actually the three heroes of old who first faced down Alduin and sent him forward in time. I bet that they want a piece of the pie and aim to finish what they started all those years ago. The Hall of Valor was magnificent. It housed many important Nordic figures like Jürgen Windcaller and Olaf One-Eye. As for the actual hall itself, the masonry was stunning. There was a hearth in every corner, the kegs were as big as giants, and whole cows were spinning over the pits. It was a place I wish I could have stayed in longer, but Alduin was still outside, snatching and feasting on lost souls. Approaching the three heroes, Gormlaith began speaking to me.
At long last, Alduin's doom is now ours to seal. Just speak the word, and with high hearts, we'll hasten forth to smite the worm wherever he lurks.
Hold, comrades. Let us counsel take before battle is blindly joined. Alduin's mist is more than a snare. Its shadowy gloom is his shield and cloak. But with four voices joined, our valor combined, we can...
A cup, Dragonborn, to death and glory. Feldir speaks wisdom.
The World Eater, coward, fears you, Dragonborn. We must drive away his mist, shouting together, and then unsheath our blades in desperate battle with our black-winged foe.
To battle, my friends! The field will echo with the clamor of war, our wills undaunted.
As the three heroes readied themselves, it was clear that this was to be the last stand against Alduin the World Eater. With that, thus ends the quest, Sovngarde. Together, the four of us moved out of the Hall of Valor and ran across the Whalebone Bridge back into the valley. As we passed by Soon, he wished us luck, but to be honest, I was hoping that all 8 feet of him would have joined our cause. Lining up before the mist, the heroes of old came up with a plan.
We cannot fight the foe in this mist.
Clear skies! Combine our shouts!
Look!
Alduin was fighting back, but it seemed like our combined Thumes outmatched his.
Again!
Look!
Does his strength have no end? Is our struggle in vain?
Stand fast! His strength is failing. Once more and his might will be broken.
His power crumbles. Do not pause for breath.
Casting clear skies once more in unison, the mist had completely disappeared, making the valley totally visible again. The World Eater came flying in from one of his hiding spots and blasted us all with fire breath. During the commotion, I used Dragon Rend and pulled him down to the ground. The three heroes began wailing on him, giving Alduin everything they had, and I did the same. While on the ground, it seemed like his attention was mostly held on me. However, in the air, he targeted everyone else, so it was a fair trade-off. This battle felt a little easier than the one with Paarthurnax by my side, and I think it was because the three Nords were dealing a lot more damage to Alduin than Paarthurnax did. Taking some direct hits from his fire breath, I needed to occasionally pop a few health potions, but nowhere near as close to the amount I needed with the Dragon Priest. Finally, I had the smarts to switch over to Dragonbane, and Alduin's HP was draining rapidly. All four of us were slashing, slicing, and stabbing in unison, his health creeping ever lower until finally, the killing blow was delivered. With the World Eater gone for good, I spoke with Soon once more.
Just at last, and cleansed his Sovngarde of his evil snare. They will sing of this battle in Shore's Hall forever, but your fate lies elsewhere. When you have completed your count of days, I may welcome you again with glad friendship and bid you join the blessed feasting.
All hail the Dragonborn! Hail him with great praise!
When you are ready to rejoin the living, just bid me so, and I will send you back.
I told him that I was ready to return to Tamriel.
Return now to Nirn, with this rich boon from Shore, my lord. A shout to bring a hero from Sovngarde in your hour of need.
Soon shouts at me and teleports me back to Skyrim. I'm placed at the throat of the world, and there are a whole bunch of dragons gathered around, including Paarthurnax.
Sorot fur kanaran. Vakin los oktavakri. Vumi los nolot. Mulos vomir. So it is done. Alduin Dilon, the eldest, is no more. He who came before all others, and has always been.
I tell Parthenax that I have no regrets.
Of course. Alduin Wachlan Dani. I would not have helped you if I thought otherwise. You did what was necessary. Alduin had flown far from the path of right action in his Pachlok, in the arrogance of his power. But I cannot celebrate his fall. Zutiraz Ach Ochma. He was my brother once. This world will never be the same.
I tell him that I was just fulfilling my destiny.
Indeed, you saw more clearly than I. Certainly more clearly than Alduin. Roch Funta Korav. Perhaps now you have some insight into the forces that shape the Benesatid, the currents of time. Perhaps you begin to see the world as a Dova. But I forget myself. Crosis, solos midfadon. Melancholy is an easy trap for a Dova to fall into. You have won a mighty victory, Shahroch Kongrach. One that will echo through all the ages of this world for those who have eyes to see. Savor your triumph, Dovahkiin. This is not the last of what you will write upon the currents of time. Goran, I feel younger than I have any age. Many of the Dovahe are now scattered across Kizal. Without Alduin's lordship, they may yet bow to the Vaxen, brightness of my throne. But willing or no, they will hear it. Fare thee well, Dovahkiin.
It seems as though in Alduin's passing, Parthenax has taken the mantle of Dragon Leader. As he flies away for good to lands beyond, my new friend, Odahviing, comes into the picture, lands by the time wound, and speaks with me.
Prusa Wundana wa Wuthgain. I wish the Old One luck in his quest. But I doubt many will wish to exchange Alduin's lordship for the tyranny of Parthenax's way of the voice. As for myself, you've proven your mastery twice over. Thuri Dovahkiin, I gladly acknowledge the power of your Thum. Zu Odahviing, call me when you have need, and I will come if I can.
With the Dragon Menace wrapped up, the final two people I wanted to speak with were Arngir and Esbern, two mentors of mine that helped me throughout this entire journey.
I can see it in your eyes. You've seen the land of the gods and returned. Does this mean it is done? Is Alduin truly defeated?
I tell Arngir, yes, it's true.
At last, it is over. Perhaps it was all worth it in the end. You've shown yourself mighty, both in voice and deed. In order to defeat Alduin, you have gained mastery of dreadful weapons. Now it is up to you to decide what to do with your power and skill. Will you be a hero whose name is remembered in song throughout the ages? Or will your name be a curse to future generations? Or will you merely fade from history, unremembered? Let the way of the voice be your guide, and the path of wisdom will be clear to you. Breath and focus, Dragonborn. Your future lies before you.
A different dialogue pathway that wasn't shown involves bringing up the fact that the Dragonborn didn't absorb Alduin's soul when he was slain. This troubles Arngir and makes him wonder if Alduin can truly be defeated, or if his role in the universe is set in stone. Next, I traveled over to Skyhaven Temple and sought out the Blades.
We heard the news from Whiterun that you left the city on the back of a dragon. That's a little showy, even for you. Since you're still alive, I assume you have good news to report.
I tell Delphine that I slew Alduin in Sovngarde.
Gods above, that's better news than I had hoped. When you walked into my inn that day, I never imagined where it would all lead. Dragons out of legend, Sovngarde.
You've done it. Just as the prophecy said. I knew you could do it. I believed in you, and yet I still didn't think I'd live to see this day. Thank you. Thank you, Dragonborn. You've done a great service for us all.
There's still the matter of Paarthurnax. I'm not ungrateful for what you've done. Esbern speaks for both of us. But our oath as blades binds us. Paarthurnax must die. There's no excuse now that Alduin is dead.
I'm afraid she's right. I'm deeply sorry that this has to come between us. But just as Paarthurnax's later deeds do not expiate his crimes, your deeds do not allow us to ignore our duty.
Unfortunately for the Blades, Paarthurnax is gone with the wind, and I couldn't kill him even if I wanted to. With pretty much all of the loose ends taken care of, thus ends the quest Dragonslayer, and that wraps up the main questline featured in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Now, I tried to interject with my thoughts during a lot of the later quests, so for this brief recap analysis part, I'll just talk about my thoughts as a whole while going through the story. I hadn't played Skyrim in years, around 7 to be exact, so there were a lot of finer details that took me by surprise, and even smaller observations that I had never made before. Some key examples were Delphine meeting with Farengar at Dragon's Reach, just after the player returns from Bleak Falls Barrow, as well as the Blade's prophecy on Alduin's Wall read by Esbern. I feel like I learned a lot during this playthrough compared to all of the ones I've done in the past, and a lot of that is due in part to the dialogue. For these story-based series, I try to explore as many of the dialogue options as I can. I understand that sometimes they seem boring or pointless, but I feel like it's all the little moments that help to paint the bigger picture. It's also those moments that help expand on the game's lore and further my understanding of the Elder Scrolls. Knowing what was going to happen a lot of the time though, it really changes how one plays the game and interacts with the environment. In some cases, I found it to be a pro because I could anticipate what was coming next and prepare for it, ensuring a smoother storytelling process. At other times though, I found it to be a con, as those raw reactionary moments were taken away from me, and it actually impeded some of the storytelling. Someone told me something that I feel as though is kind of true for this game's story. Its pacing feels a little quick. I wouldn't necessarily set this up as a bad thing, but I can understand that it's off-putting to some. Around the 4th or so quest, the player finds out that they're the Dragonborn, gets summoned by the Greybeards, and pretty much unlocks most of their potential. If we take a look at some of the earlier titles, like Morrowind for example, it takes a while for the player to fulfill the Nerevarine prophecy, and there are many trials that need to be embarked on. There are a lot more quests featured in its storyline, and there's a lot of build-up to defeat Dagoth. Perhaps an argument that could be made though in favor of Skyrim's shorter, faster story is that it's built up around learning how to defeat Alduin, and what it means to be the Dragonborn. Shouts are given to the player early on, so that way they can think about collecting them, slaying more dragons, and above all else, actually get to spend a long time using them. The Dragonborn status detail helps to push that narrative along. Although, one of my main post-game thoughts is what really happened in the story. I don't mean that in a negative sense, like everything felt arbitrary and pointless, but more so that not a whole lot stands out as memorable to me. There are a few quests that will always be iconic, like Diplomatic Immunity, Sovngarde, Alduin's Wall, and Elder Knowledge, but it feels like of the 17 or so missions featured, only a few of them felt like they carried weight. To me, a lot of them seemed like bridge quests, where it felt like they were only there to connect other ideas. Like for example, the Throat of the World, where the player first meets Paarthurnax. It's a lengthy, dialogue-filled quest where a lot of lore is dropped, but the main takeaway is that you need an Elder Scroll. Alduin's Bane is another example, where it goes as quickly as reading the Elder Scroll and then having a small tussle with Alduin. Or another one is A Blade in the Dark, where Delphine and the player travel to Kynesgrove in order to slay a dragon. It's also a quick one and done deed that could have been used to further explain another one of the Dragonborn's powers, or some sort of other lore element. Of course, we did learn about the blades and Delphine's part in all of this through that quest, so I can't speak too much more on it. I guess the best way to explain my thoughts and feelings is that the main quest line felt like 9 or so long quests and less so like 17 separate ones. Again, not necessarily a bad thing, but different to other Elder Scrolls titles. Now, I wanted to switch over to the quests that I really enjoyed. And number one, of course, is Diplomatic Immunity. It has and always will be one of my favorite quests featured in this game. I feel as though it's so unique in its design compared to the other ones, and there are so many different ways to approach it. Guns blazing, stealthily, peacefully, you name it. I always get a rush when it comes to thwarting the Thalmor, and realizing just how much is at stake during that mission, it only adds fuel to the flame. Another quest, or series of quests, I should say, that I really enjoyed were the last three. The World Eater's Eyrie, Sovngarde, and Dragonslayer. I've always been a fan of the last stand sort of missions where it's all or nothing for the hero, and that's exactly what these ones felt like. Battling through Skuldafn, enduring waves of Draugr and dragons, facing a dragon priest, it was a nice way to close out the game. Then, in Sovngarde, the brief calm before the storm moments, traversing the mist, meeting the heroes of old in the Hall of Valor, it all felt like a fitting reward for the efforts put in thus far, as well as for what was to come. Then of course, you have Dragonslayer, the final battle with Alduin. What I enjoyed the most about it was the implication of it not absorbing his soul after the battle was won. Is Alduin set to return in thousands of years? Sooner? Was that left in just to have some open-endedness, similar to how in Morrowind, Nabati Mesa feels that the Sixth House isn't truly gone when Dagothar is defeated? It puts the mind into overdrive, and the imagination starts to flow freely on all of the possibilities. In the end though, I still feel as if the Blade's prophecy is trying to tell the player something. I feel as though Alduin's destruction of the world being the last part on Alduin's wall, and the fact that every Elder Scrolls title has led up to this moment, leads me to believe that the Elder Scrolls 6 could be a completely new concept. It could surround a whole new worldly topic, and then take place in a foreign land, not just Hammerfell or High Rock, but potentially Akavir. There's been a lot of emphasis on Akavir in the last few titles of the Elder Scrolls, and it's only a matter of time before the series jumps across the sea and moves on to a whole new side of the world. In any case, that wraps up my take on Skyrim's main story and possibilities for the future. Thank you so much for watching and exploring this game with me, and until next time, keep on adventuring.